Fabulous. All good. Right, so I've got this Aussie Kiwi here. The question says it's not the direction I expect, but look, I think it will get to $1.12, $1.20 when, it could be next year, but that's the general direction I think it is going. I agree with you, and I think I said yesterday or the day before that this double top here with divergence, the could be a pullback from this. How far that's going to go, I don't know. But obviously, with the Aussie unemployment data yesterday, we saw this huge turnaround in the direction the Aussie had 100 pip range, and what was this range? 1047 to 926, so 120 pip range in that. Um, could it be going to all the way down to where you suggest down here? Quite possibly. There seems to be a nice channel that it's running in there. We certainly have the divergence, and whether it's pulls up on the 50 or carries on through down to here is yet to be seen. But there's certainly going to be some selling pressure here off that divergence. You would expect. I personally, I'd like to be getting long this at some point. I think 109 is an area. It's an area I've been looking to sort of get long from. I had an area in here of where I wanted to get long from, but hasn't got through that. You could suggest that the market, the momentum is down here in the 50s. How much further will it go? Will it get to all the way across your channel? It may not in this move. It might do something like this where it doesn't quite get there. It's something that you've got to take on board and as a part of your trade plan go, well, momentum's already halfway across there. Perhaps it will stop at the 50 and I need to be aware of that and prepared for it. But yeah, I like this as a short. It's certainly there. Obviously the risk or your stop loss sort of area, unless you're using an ATR style thing, is quite excessive. So, you know, it's certainly a potential one and worth looking at. So, and thank you for the question. The old man was out chasing horses on a quad bike, and decided to get bucked off that quad bike and use his head as a skid brake, which put a bit of pressure on the vertebrae. And at the age of 70, it's you don't recover too easily from those things. So he's in a neck brace for a couple of months, which means I'm up here on the farm running things until he's able to get back out amongst it. So he's all right. He's improving every day, and I appreciate the thoughts. But he's a tough old bugger. He'll be right. So the next one we're looking at is Kiwi Swiss. And the thoughts on the Kiwi Swiss. Potential ring low today. Okay, so you've identified a bit of a trend or a channel here. That's good. And that it's coming off this again. Higher highs and higher lows on each cycle. You've got your fib from that last cycle. That's good. It's found support at the 61.8, which is great. You've drawn this fib in here for extensions, I presume, to see where your target might be. Is there a horizontal support line? You've identified these highs. Okay, I don't think my market data goes back that far. And unfortunately it doesn't. That's a good strong trend line that you've identified. Yep, cool. You can see that. Put that on that low. Nice. I'd have to go to E-signal to see if this line that you've put in here, if this is the only reaction to it. and therefore how strong it is. But it's certainly there is some sort of resistance area there. Obviously, the Kiwi's a little weaker this morning, which is keeping this underneath here. But who knows what happens tonight? So that's it's a fair call. The momentum has worn out of this, and we're now down to the lower end of the scale. So how much further will it go? But it's got a lot more upside to it than it does downside. We just need to see the buying, and we see this ring low off that trend line, which is great. But obviously today's it's not following through, so time might tell. But you'd have an order in there to play with that. It may come through tonight. Horizontal off a fib. Bullish price action. Is it really? It's a higher high. It's not bullish, but we're starting to see the buying coming in where we expect it, and that's what we look for. And I'll come back to that on my chart. EMA support. Don't know about that one. The 200's way down here, and the 50's up there. So I wouldn't say you've got that, and you're not above the EMAs. You're only above you can't say you're above both of them. And you don't have EMA support. Oh, okay, I see what you're doing. You're giving it a 1. You haven't given those ones. Okay. Hidden divergence. No, doesn't seem to be hidden divergence. Okay, good. Trend line support 1, absolutely. Resistance in the way. Scores 4. FOMC. Is there FOMC this week? And I wouldn't suggest that. No. Okay, no FOMC. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought. Even if there was, that FOMC would have a huge influence on this pair. But that's all good. You've got bullish reversal divergence, which is also pretty good. So in this area, we're expecting to see, you got the 50 or the 61.8 fib. So you're expecting to see buying coming in here, and this is not, it's not bullish, but we wanted to see the buying intention, and we get a bit of it here in the last 2 days. Some of it around here off that support line, but it's not bullish yet. But it's where the buyers are coming in. They obviously there's a bit of selling coming through there, and it's this wasn't bullish by any stretch of the imagination, but it was obviously in an area where the market expected to find some buying, and off she went, and that's what we're looking to repeat here. So that's a good, and yeah, it was bullish, making lower lows, and RSI is sort of creeping up, so there's bullish reversal divergence. Okay, that's good. The next email came in yesterday. You're an Aussie. I have a question for you. I've targeted the low of the 7th of November 2013 at $1.40. There's a fib extension of 61.8 from the previous swing low at 42.09. This one here. So you mean the 1.618, I presume you mean, not 61.8. So if you do that, yeah, you're targeting in here. There's obviously strong support. Well, this is obviously strong support. Is the risk reward too low for this trade? RSI is at the 50 cent on the 50s. It's 60 now. Is my resistance at 44.32 valid or too soft because price went through it and hit the 61.8? Let's have a look at what you're looking at. doesn't, with all this here, 44.32 doesn't look that strong. We'd have to go back and see what else is there. Yes, it's come back and stopped on it, but why? It's certainly where's your fib from there? You've drawn that fib to get your target. 40-60 pivot point is an intraday strategy. Yeah. Not necessarily. If you use the weekly or the monthly, they can be horizontal support and resistance lines. I'm just trying to see where this one started. You started there. Where'd you? You should have. Yeah, here. So it's come back to the 61.8. Yep. So you've drawn that fib there, and it's come back and found 61.8, and that may be what pulled it up. Certainly pulled it up again. Rather than a horizontal, you need to sort of start looking at, well, doesn't seem to be 44.32. Going back to the 90s, doesn't seem to be all that interesting. The high here might. That's 43.45. Come back into the weekly. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be a huge resistance level there. It doesn't have to be huge though. We just need some sort of. Stop doing that. And I would have probably gone across these two highs here, as across there as a level, which is 45, and that's miles away. So then you potentially what you'd be looking at is just these lows across here as a support resistance line, like that at 44 effectively. It's 43.98, but let's call it 44. Market's back above that, and it's obviously the Aussie dollar weakness at this stage. So you didn't get triggered in, and now with this bar here, you'd be leaving it alone. Those who did get in a little earlier underneath this bar here, your stop would have been above there. Unfortunately, you obviously need to. You won't be moving your stop now because there's little point in moving it. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, you did have a question about the CAD Swiss, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. So the resistance line. Was a little hard to find. Your support level is good. The risk reward is okay on that. What did you say about the weekly? You said the weekly is made what? The weekly made a higher low and a bullish bar. It's an inside buyer bar. I haven't measured it, but it could be bullish, but it's inside buyer bar. This now is obviously there's another point of concern on the weekly, so you wouldn't necessarily be looking at this at this point in time, and if you're in it, you'd be probably wishing you weren't. You're certainly not looking at the trade now. CAD Swiss, you mentioned that it was you thought it was in a range and it wasn't making higher highs. I see each high as being higher, and certainly each sort of low being higher as well. Okay, this low has made a lower low than that, but that's not really the significant low. We've got this, well, I've got this trend line here, which is the change of the start of the change in the direction of this trend. It's obviously had a huge downfall. On the weekly, you could be saying, well, we're looking for another run down. Well, you look at that. We've got a ring high there with a high test bar. That'll be a point of concern. And right now, we're not a bit of buying intention where we expect to see it, but I certainly wouldn't be trading this as a range, which is what you're kind of suggesting, and trying to get an extension bar in there, or Fibonacci extensions, and that is obviously difficult to do when price really hasn't sort of moved between 83 and 84 all that much. But with higher highs and reasonably higher lows, I would be looking at this as a trend and a trend continuation potential trade. Obviously, this break of this low is maybe a little bit of concern, but the most significant lows I would suggest are the previous cycles, which is this one. Clear cycle is that one there, or this one here, and we're nowhere near that. So, and the other concern would be the weekly, and that seems to be happening on the CAD a lot, that you're getting this rollover, and that it'd be maybe sitting on the sidelines. Right now, if you're looking to take this trade as a trend continuation, you'd be saying, well, that's your risk there. It's a doji bar, so it's not all that strong either. You probably won't get in this trade today if you went into it. CAD's looking a little bit weaker. Does that answer your questions there? I don't see it as a range at all. We're either in a trend continuation long, or it's the bigger story about the weekly, and we're looking at a new phase one short, which means we need to wait for a cycle underneath the EMA. But certainly not a range trade. And if that's you either trade the weekly, if that's your view, you're either trading this as a weekly, and you're looking at this at 180, 200 pip stop, and potentially making beating this low and making lower lows. Or if you don't want to trade the weekly, you wait for this the cycle underneath the EMA. Yep. Okay, and you didn't get in, so you should cancel that order, Dave. Okay, I've got a question from a new trader. How does one stay impartial, or at least find their own setups? Learning from others is priceless, though I want to avoid most of my trades coming from others' research. I could just take any trade setups I agree with on my accounts. What I'm saying is, if I aim to make minimum 3% per month on a prop account, I want that to be my 3%, my hard work, my skills, and it's from my work. Is that all good? Thoughts? Maybe this has been asked before. How does one stay impartial? That's pretty hard to do. You don't listen. I don't listen to other people's views of the market. I have my own views. It's good to continue to learn and learn other style of other strategies and other styles, but it's got to be a matter of what fits and suits you. And at this point in your career, you're probably not aware of what that is just yet. So it's a matter of trying what works, or what seems to work for others. We had Market, and he's gone, but he seemed to have some things that people were interested in. Some of the prop traders were very much interested in what he had to say and show. There was also Zeev. He was a bit scary, but he had something. Everybody brings their own things to the table. Grant brings his as well. So there's no right or wrong in what they do. What I do is works okay for me, but it may not work for you. But you need to try it and see how you go with it. If it doesn't work, then try something else. Yeah, it's a little hard to answer that question. On being impartial, of course, we're trying to teach you how to be traders and be your own self-sufficient traders. Um, you know, we don't want you to just do the trades that I suggest, because then if everybody's doing that, then if they work, that's great. If they don't, then everybody's losing. So I'm trying to teach you guys how to what to see in the markets and where your entry points is and how to manage it the way I do it. As I said, it works for me, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. I don't have a problem with on our prop accounts of you guys trading your own thing. If you've got something else that you want to introduce onto your prop account, don't feel like you can't trade it because it doesn't fit the rules. All I ask is that you record it, do a screenshot how these guys are doing. Put in your analysis. Tell me what you're thinking, what you're looking at, such as this, and say, well, these are the reasons for my trade, and this is my strategy, this is my entry, this is my risk, and this is how I'm going to manage it. If you do that, then you can do anything you want on the prop account. I don't care. If you're making money, that's fabulous. If you're not making money, then we might say, well, hey, what are you doing? Perhaps this needs some work because it's not obviously working for you. Maybe we need to try something else. Or does that make sense? I hope it does. I'm not against what Mark was doing. I'm not against what Zeev was doing. It doesn't necessarily work for me. What their success rate is, I don't know. I know Mark's success was yeah. Well, he told me it was 40% success, but if you're doing a decent risk reward, 40% is okay. So I'm not against any particular idea or concept. There's so many different approaches out there. Whichever works for you is the best. And how to stay impartial is pretty hard when you're learning, but you've got to take on everybody's ideas and try them out. And when you don't know anything, you've got to obviously start somewhere. But you'll obviously come to an awareness over time that what isn't working and what does work. There's been the way I trade is the struggles, and when the market is volatile without a direction, because you just get into a trade and it's starting to go in your favor, and then by the time you get to manage your trade, it turns around and you don't end up making anything. So. But the way I do trade is when the markets do trend, then you are making money, and it should be paying for all the losses that you've had in trying to get a trend to start. So, as I said, it works for me, and it may not work for everybody. So I'm just going around in circles now, so I'll shut up. But I hope I've answered your question. If I haven't, let me know. How does the Swiss floor, the question here is, how does the Swiss floor affect the CAD Swiss weekly consideration? I don't think it does. The Swiss floor is against the euro. So obviously they'll be buying the Swiss currency. They'll be selling the Swiss currency. And buying the euro when that euro cross reaches $1.20. So it doesn't necessarily affect the CAD Swiss, and it could if the Euro Swiss is at $1.20 and they're intervening by selling Swiss. Then obviously that will push the CAD Swiss higher. But I wouldn't be sort of worried because it's a different pair. You don't know what the Canadian dollar is going to be doing at that time when the Euro Swiss hits $1.20. So I wouldn't be taking it necessarily into an account. Okay, this one Euro long phase 2. Yeah, look, I'm expecting it to sort of do that. I sort of looked at it this morning and thought there's probably a bit more weakness in here. This is literally closed in the middle of the bar, or half a pip away from it. So there's no real commitment there. But we certainly have divergence, and you'd be, looking at $1.35. Trading against the trend is tricky. Phase 2s, but it's certainly looking there. You need to have a reasonably strong support, and I presume this is. Well, you actually need to have a strong support, and I presume that you've got that there. Is it a strong support? I wouldn't suggest it is, based on that. Yeah, I wouldn't suggest that's a strong support level. It hasn't really turned on that low there at all. So that'd be my concern with that, is that there is that support level doesn't really exist. It's just oversold. What is you might be looking at is saying, well, it's at the 1.618, but there's nothing really in that either. I'd prefer to just stay out of it and look for shorting here. That's my preference, but resistance, isn't it support? You need support, not resistance. Bearish price action. Aren't you looking for bullish? If this is trading this long? Fibonacci extension, yes, you've got the fib. I'll give you that. And you've got divergence, yes. Even though you haven't written it in there. Oh, RSI, yes. Okay, you have written it in there. Literally all we're seeing is divergence at around the 1.618, because we're not yet seeing bullish price action, and that support line I don't see as being a strong one. So I'd be yes, but waiting. Still waiting. Yeah, I'd still wait. I'd leave it alone personally, but each to their own. I just don't think that's a strong enough support line. Alright, how do you insert checklists in the trade journal without messing up the spreadsheet? Look, I had a look at this morning. Let's say that you're looking at the CAD Swiss to go long. Well, let's look at something else actually. Let's look at the... What else is there out there? Kiwi Swiss. Let's look at this one. Alright, so we change this to Kiwi Swiss. Whoop. Kiwi Swiss. We're going long. We've got 50,000 bucks to play with. We're going to risk 1%. Our entry is Entry is 77.23, 0.7723. Our stop is 0.7643. So we've got an 80 pip risk. Target, let's just go for that, 78.78, 0.7878. So 1.94, right? If I then, today's date, add to journal, right, we get this here. If I then click on yes to that, yeah, I can then go in here and click on view. I've got my checklist. And we've got higher highs. Are we above the moving averages? Well, are we? No. And we don't have EMI. We've got a horizontal, we've got RSI convergence, we've got, let's say that, we've got that, certainly got that. No hidden divergence, right? So that's all we need to do. If we close that, reasons for P&L and whatever. However, what you do is, if you move this, you might need two screens to do this. But if you move that away from that screen, yeah, you move this onto, and then do a save window. I'm not sure exactly what your, the question was how do you insert a checklist into the trade journal? Well, that's how you insert it. How do you insert it into your screenshot is another thing. And your final question is who can I contact for help with this? Okay, you can ring Alex McManus in the office. She should be able to help. But does that answer your question, mate? Does? Cool. Right out. And last one is the EuroCAD. EuroCAD. I've been waiting for an entry to short this pair for some time. Yeah, you and me both. We've got some of it, but not all of it. The previous day bar had a buyer sentiment. I didn't want to place any in order. The next bar I had sellers, so I'm interested. Have a look at my analysis. This came in yesterday, Thursday, during the webinar. I appreciate your comments. I've seen the support at $1.44, but that's nearly 2 times risk reward. Fabulous. I think it may break through to retest later. Cool. I think had you placed your order, you might have been taken in with this doji looking bar, and that's okay. We've got this trend line here. I don't know what that one is. Oh, that's the weekly. That's right. We were looking at that yesterday. We've got that support line, or now resistance line. This is your 44 support, but your risk reward will be okay. And now in the trade and managing it, so you know, I too like this. Lower highs, bearish price action below the moving averages, yeah. EMA resistance, yes. RSI convergence, yeah. Even hidden divergence, which you didn't give a point, but you noted on the chart. Okay. Horizontal resistance, yes. Fibonacci is 0.5, and you've drawn that. Well, okay. That's all good, mate. And you're thinking it's going to break through that $1.44 and retest it. Okay. I think you might be right. What goes up must come down. Okay, guys, that's it for today. I hope you have a lovely weekend, and hope you all survived the movements overnight. Is this EuroCAD still good for lower time frame? Well, yeah, you could. I haven't looked at the lower time frame. 4 hour. Not on the 4 hour. On the 1 hour. Maybe. Yeah, it's. You need to do your analysis on it. Just like you do on anything. The 618's offering resistance there. You could potentially start it on the. Get a trade going on the hourly. Yeah. Potentially. I mean, if you'd risk reward, you potentially even look at that's about 1 to 1 there. If it's going to break that, then yeah, it's not 1-to-1, but yeah, you need to be, potentially you can trade that on the shorter time frame, absolutely. Looks like a phase one long on the weekly. Yeah, look, this is what we were discussing yesterday. It is potential, nice ring low test off that support line, and it is making higher highs. That is true, and it's certainly starting to come off the low, potentially even reversal divergence, bullish reversal divergence there on the weekly. Monthly though, I'd be more on. Oh, that's pretty good support there too. Could be just doing a lot of nothingness. Very strong trend there, obviously, in the that's got it up to here, and that's a bit of a pullback. It's a tough one. I'd be willing to put a bit of capital, but on the fact that this trend line is what's happening now, with the 50 coming out of the 200 for the first time on the daily since who knows when that was last there, back in December 2012. That was the initial cross here, and now we're back to the 50 crossing under it. So I'd be willing to put a bit of capital on that trade. My bias is short euro and bullish CAD, and I have been for some time. But maybe that's giving me a biased opinion of this trade. It's proved all right for the last 4 or 5 months. So yeah, it's a tough one, and if in doubt or uncertain, then don't take the trade. Look at something else. Right. Thanks for your time, guys. I shall. We've got another one on Monday for the month of August. These webinars are all 10 a.m. That's because I'm here in Tamworth for the month of August, unless I'm down in Sydney doing the boot camp around the 21st. Sorry, on the 20th and the 21st. But these are all 10 a.m. So the next one's Monday on the 11th. I shall see you then. You guys have a good one. Where's the stop button on?